People in our own backyards are hurting. There are insecurities around food, economics, mental health, access to justice, healthcare, and our society continues to become more divisive. But there is hope. Right here in Chicagoland, there are people and organizations who are on the front lines working to bring about positive and transformative change. Each week, we're going to meet some of these agents of change and examine how they are spurring innovative ideas and finding solutions to push our society forward in a more just direction. I'm Sufyan Sohel, and this is Change Agents.
Good evening and Happy New Year. I am Sufyan Sohel. I'm a civil rights attorney and social impact consultant, and it is my absolute honor to be back as your host for Season 2 of Change Agents. Each week we learn about some of the biggest issues facing Chicagoans and meet incredible leaders and organizations working towards long-lasting positive change in our communities. Last year we learned and talked about mental health struggles and food inequity, gender violence and hate crimes, and so many other challenges facing our neighbors and families. I've learned so much from each of our guests and hope that our conversations and their incredible work have inspired you like they have me. It is a brand new year. We have conflict and tension around the world and in our own city as our communities are becoming more divisive with the rise of disinformation and heightened disparities faced by our most impacted. Our communities, our neighbors are struggling. Many of us are returning to work after spending time traveling or with loved ones, eating good food with a warm roof over our heads. We are very lucky. It is estimated that over 68,000 experience homelessness in Chicago. That is over 68,000 of our fellow Chicagoans without a permanent roof over their heads. In 2022, there was an estimated 14,183 unaccompanied youth between the ages of 18 to 24 who experienced homelessness. 17,773 students coped with homelessness while attending Chicago public schools in 2022. Why is this happening? Why does homelessness continue to be such a problem in Chicago? What is being done or can be done to address this challenge? To help us understand some of this better and to talk about his organization's amazing work, I am so pleased to introduce my first guest of the night, Salvador Cerna, the Director of Community Impact and Special Projects at La Casa Norte. Sal, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you for inviting us.
Of course. So I shared a bunch of stats, which I stole right off your website. So thank you for sharing that information with me. And I really want to touch on the question I posed of why homelessness, especially youth homelessness, is such a problem in Chicago.
Well, let me start by saying that we are driven by a mission to serve youth and their families who are either homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. We also provide programs and services for these same families and youth to be able to become catalysts of change and succeed out of their situation, to become, like I said, catalysts of change in their own lives and the lives of their community. In 2002, we started in a small storefront in North Avenue because Sol Flores realized that there was a need to address the issue of homelessness in our youth that a lot of times gets overlooked because we focus a lot in families, right? So saying that, we have grown from being a 2-staff person to 71 staff people now.
That's amazing.
21 years later.
Yeah.
And we tried to provide them wraparound services, not just to address the issue of putting a roof over someone's head, but also we understand that in order for someone to succeed and be able to get out of their predicament, they need to be provided with wraparound services. Services of food, employment training, social emotional support, health services, food accessibility, which is everything we do it under our roof in our North Avenue office, our main office. We also have housing, which is temporary housing, emergency housing that we call it. We have more stable housing, and we have extended housing for our youth throughout the city. In any given moment, we help about 1,200 people at every given moment.
That's so fantastic.
And, yeah. So the need is there.
Yeah.
We need to address the issue seriously about homelessness, and it's never enough.
It's never enough.
Never enough.
And thank you for sharing about the incredible work of the organization, the wraparound. And I'm going to come back to this catalyst of change concept that you mentioned and we talked about a little bit earlier. But I'd like to go back to my initial question of like, what are some of the why are we seeing so many, especially youth homelessness in our city? And how are you learning about them? How are they being connected with your organization?
Yes, I mean, the issue with youth homelessness is sometimes it's challenging because it's not as open. And one of the things that we're doing is through our peer-to-peer program, we call it our Youth Ambassador Program, Public Health Ambassador Program. We try to train young men and women to be the voice and the ears and the eyes of the organization with other young men and women. So that if we train young people to identify the symptoms and when someone is going through a hardship, then they can come back and say, hey, look, there's such a thing as Casa Norte that can provide you the support that you might need at this moment. Why don't you contact them? Or there are other organizations that can provide the same thing. Or health, for instance. You need a clinic, or you're a single mom, a teenage single mom, but you need a place to go and live, or you need health services, or you're lacking a warm place to stay during this winter time, right? So through our peer-to-peer program, we're hoping we can reach that goal.
Okay, so it's word of mouth. It's you're sending ambassadors out to the community to feel a pulse. It's not always them on the streets or in camps under certain bridges and things like that. You're sending people out to really identify them and bring them into the services.
And it's also social media.
Yeah.
It's also where young people and families can get the information, reliable information they need. I always say when I'm invited to programs such as this is, if you find yourself in a predicament, find the help.
Yeah.
Call Casa Norte. Reach out to other non-for-profits that can provide you the assistance that you need in order to move on. Don't stay where you're at because the streets are dangerous.
100%.
All right? The streets are dangerous, and you can put yourself in a difficult situation that we might regret. It's not always easy. Homelessness what we see in terms of young people and families and homeless is what we see in the shelters. We see them under a bridge, but there's also such a thing as doubling up, and also or couch surfing, which a lot of times is not
considered
homelessness, right? So we need to start looking at redefining what homelessness is.
Sure.
The same study that you brought up by the Chicago Foundation for the Homeless mentioned that it's a systematic racism that has kept African Americans to be the highest percentage of homelessness in the city of Chicago, almost 58%. Growing with them is the Latino community. In the Latinx community, their homelessness looks a little different because they're doubling up.
Yeah.
They're living with, they might be out of home, and they're living with a cousin or an aunt or a brother or sister.
But it's not their home.
And it's not their home. And a lot of times we don't consider them homeless. Well, we need to continue redefining what homelessness is so that we can actually provide the services to everybody that needs it. Sometimes these folks, just because they have a roof over their head, don't qualify for services. So we need to redefine that.
Thank you for sharing that. When we were talking earlier, you were discussing how before you joined La Casa Norte, you were working with the migrant issue. And we were talking a little bit about how they're people too, and they need housing and support services and maybe some of the tension. So what I'd love to hear is what brings you to this work of supporting communities struggling, and what keeps you doing this every day?
It's tough. Yeah. The issue with migrants. It's a human rights issue. It's not an issue of them versus us. It's a human rights. As individuals that live in a country like the United States, we have a moral responsibility to address the issue of homelessness, not just for our homeless, but everyone who comes in its need of a shelter. Our migrants had come here for many reasons, and we can argue what the reasons are. Partially, it's our fault as a country. But once they're here, we have a moral responsibility to address it. If we had addressed the issue of homelessness before, because homelessness was already in existence before the migrant crisis, if we had addressed the issue of homelessness, if we had addressed the issue of healthcare, if we had addressed the issue of many other determinants that we're still dealing with, we wouldn't have the situation that we have now. Right? Or at least we will know a way out. Now that the crisis is here, I'm glad to an extent, because it has lifted up the issue of homelessness to a degree where now we need to pay more attention to it, right? Unfortunately, this had to happen, right? What motivates me? Social justice, right? Social justice in our streets. It motivates me, the social justice that I see in religion. It motivates me, the social justice that I see in young people every day. It's about social justice.
I love that. And, following social media and seeing how energized and passionate the next generations of people are is really inspiring. It gives me a lot of hope. They have no filters. They're speaking their truths and the truths of so many marginalized communities around the world. And it's really empowering and hopeful to see. Thank you for sharing all that. Let's go back to this concept of catalysts of change. And you're a catalyst of change, your organization's a catalyst of change, but you're talking about you are trying to empower the communities you work with and the individuals to be catalysts of change. Can you tell a little bit more about what you mean by that?
It's if we can make the difference in one person's life and provide him the tools to succeed, then they in turn will help others. And that catalyst continues to move on and beyond and multiply. But we need to be very intentional on how we provide not just the tools, but the training for that. Part of our work at Casa Norte is to build leadership for the future. Responsible leadership that is going to focus on social justice. Yes, we are primarily on youth who are homeless or at risk to becoming homeless, and paying that attention to them, but we need to provide every single individual with the tools to succeed. And it's not just about putting Band-Aids. It's about literally providing them with education, shelter, food on their table, and more than anything else is dignity, right? Beyond and above everything, it's about an individual to be able to stand up with their head high up in dignity, right? 100%. And not with small little Band-Aids.
Sal, thank you so much for joining us today. I've learned so much about you and so proud of the work at La Casa Norte.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to dig deeper in with our next guest, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Darius Hillman. Joining me on the Next in the Arena, internationally acclaimed thought leader and architect at the forefront of the digital transformation of cities, George Burciaga.
As poor as I was, I always felt loved somehow, and I always found a place to love back.
Tuesday at 7 p.m. on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and the CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
Welcome back. I'm thrilled to welcome Luz Cortez, Community Assistance Program Manager at La Casa Norte. Luz, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Luz, tell us a little bit about your work.
So I'm the Community Assistance Program Manager. So my team and I are really out in the field, in the community, working with members in the community that don't directly have a referral or a connection with an organization just yet.
Okay.
So we do a lot of work in the shelters, the temporary shelters right now with the asylum seekers. We're out in the streets connecting people to the services that we offer other organizations, and at community events, they're a little bit more fun.
Okay. Sal was mentioning a little bit about his work with the migrants, and you mentioned the temporary housing shelters for some of the migrants. Can you tell a little bit about some of the stories you're hearing of what brings them to Chicago and why they need housing?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. Mostly, just overall, it's about safety. A lot of the families that are coming, which is the shelter that we work at, it's a family shelter. They're coming because they're with their kids and they see that they're not going to be able to prosper in the countries that they're coming from. Just like my family and others that came to this country, we want a better life for the next generation.
Mine as well. Mm-hmm.
See, so yeah, that's mostly what we hear. There are struggles right now with the educational piece. Chicago doesn't have as many schools that offer ESL. So we have an influx of students in particular schools in the city. But we're working through it, and just having everybody involved, governments, nonprofit organizations, school counselors, and principals, we're able to provide the resources that they need and be able to help their families succeed.
That's so great. You raise a fascinating topic in terms of education and how there are not that many ESL-based schools or schools where those students who may not have a strong grasp of English can go, and most of the migrants who are coming into the city probably don't have a strong grasp of English right now. And those are challenges, probably so many others, that people don't think about when they think about people coming into Chicago. So how do you best connect them to the resources that they may need and help them navigate through all these different nuances?
I think it's mostly from experience. I myself was the translator for my mom. So getting that experience and passing it on to them, letting them know, this is the place that you can go to. We offer the rental assistance, intake applications, so offering them a couple months of rent, connecting them to housing providers that would best fit their needs, that are not going to be charging an arm and a leg for rent after they receive the services. So that's kind of how we're able to help them.
Yeah.
There's other times where we do have them come back and then just keep connecting, right? Just have that other person in the city that they've already kind of built a relationship with, and be able to check in on them and say, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? Is there anything else that we can help you with? So knowing that we're here to do our job, but we're also here as a friend, just making sure that that they're getting what they need.
And sometimes, and thank you, and I feel sometimes people who are hurting or struggling want to feel seen and heard. So I appreciate and respect all that you're doing to make them feel that they are human and showing them the compassion and dignity that they deserve. How has it been navigating from an organizational perspective through the different nonprofits and government and other services? Do you think, from your experience, they've been working well together, or there's still much room for improvement?
I think there's always going to be room for improvement. Our team is pretty used to taking on projects that are pilot programs, right? Where they're just starting off, we don't have everything together, but we know where we want to get to. So for example, like the rental assistance through the Asylum Seeker Rental Assistance Program, we knew that there was going to be some barriers with technology and the language.
Sure.
And then also finding the housing locating. So being able to connect that with like Instituto del Progreso Latino, their cash assistance program, having IDHS with other programs that they may qualify for, and then just overall just like security measures from Enlace or other or the organizations that are working in the area, and having weekly meetings, I think, has also been able to help. So staying in communication with each other, keeping each other updated, being very transparent with what's going on. And I think also the city has done a pretty good job at getting us all in one place. So all the organizations that I just mentioned, we do all work in one shelter and we're all there. So we spend quite a bit of time with each other.
And that's so important, right? I think the city's only going to be as strong as all the different organizations if they're working together and collaboratively. I think too often we see sometimes competition or struggle, so it's great to see that everyone's working together for the common good. So thank you for sharing that. What would you say is some of the biggest or a big misconception that people have about the homeless, especially some of our migrant homeless?
Something that I keep hearing is that they're going to steal jobs. And that, at least from numbers that have been reported before, right? There's so many more job openings that are out there, even with people coming in and getting a job. It's just jobs that many people here are probably overqualified for because of language or because of education. And those jobs need to get filled too. And that's something that we have to remember, is that there are enough job opportunities for everybody. You know, we're in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, so we need to remember that we can all prosper here.
100%. And what keeps you doing this work? What motivated you to get into working with La Casa Norte, and what keeps you going?
I myself was a youth who faced housing instability. I lived in my car for some time because of things that were going on at home, so just thought it would be better if I just lived in my car. And then growing up, my grandmother always housed people in her house. So seeing the impact that it had on them to be able to come to a place and lay their head and be welcomed and be loved, and, you know, have a place where they can be comfortable and be themselves. So just growing up with those experiences has really made me want to pay it forward and see other people prosper and have the love that they should deserve in a place where it's comfortable.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your truth and your story. And I'm so glad that La Casa Norte and all the communities you're serving has you working on their behalf. So thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. We'll be right back with this week's Change in Action.
On the next episode of Hustle, Play, Love, we'll talk to a big idea chaser who was inspired to start a business for the culture to preserve and share Black history. And I'll be joined by Chicago's native son and international jazz composer and percussionist, Kahil El-Zabar, Tuesday, January 23rd at 7:30 p.m. on CanTV Cable Channel 19, or stream live on cantv.org or on the CanTV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
In this week's Change in Action, we highlight the Safe Flight Foundation, an organization empowering Chicago teens to maintain their independence through driving while fostering positive relationships with law enforcement.
Hello! We are teen ambassadors with the Safe Flight Foundation. Why are we with the program? Because the leading cause of death among teens is motor vehicle accidents. We are spreading the word to drive safely. Check out our website, safeflightfoundation.com.
I don't think all teens are aware of how important safe driving is and how a minor decision can impact someone's life long term. My name is Justin Bird, and Safe Flight Foundation promotes safe driving practices through charitable giving. The Teen Ambassador Program is a 7-month program where the teens first apply to participate in the program, and then the teens will have various tasks that they need to complete each month. They will post on social media to help promote safe driving. They will attend city hall meetings within their neighborhood, and they will work on being the spokesman and women for their peers in efforts of cutting back on poor driving habits within the teen environment. This was something that we first started several years ago, back in 2018. So seeing the first year from the Teen Ambassador program take a full completion was pretty remarkable. I think the most rewarding part of the Teen Ambassador program is seeing all of the hard work that the teens put in, and then seeing the end result, and not only being accepted as leaders amongst themselves, but that look of accomplishment that really kind of builds the foundation for what they have next in life. If teens are interested in joining our Teen Ambassador program, they can visit us at safelightfoundation.com. We will be accepting applications at the end of this school year as we head towards the summer of 2024.
Thank you to this week's Change in Action, the Safe Light Foundation, for your important work in empowering Chicago teens. Thank you also to Luz, Sal, and to Casa Norte for your commitment to many of our most impacted communities. Ashanti, a family client of La Casa Norte, is quoted on their website stating, "La Casa Norte helped me to gain independence and have a better quality of life. Superheroes don't all just wear capes. Some work at La Casa Norte." Like Ashanti and the many others whom you have served, I am a big fan of La Casa Norte, and I'm so honored to have you both on Change Agents so that you could share your stories and your incredible work with me and our viewers. I encourage all of you watching to visit their website and explore ways that we can support them. My friends, homelessness isn't someone else's issue. It has a ripple effect throughout our community. It impacts the availability of healthcare resources, crime and safety, the workforce, the use of tax dollars, etc., etc., etc. Homelessness impacts the present as well as our future. We'll be revisiting this topic soon with some more stories and more solutions. But until then, I leave with you a question. What can we each do, you and I, to help break this cycle of homelessness in our communities? One person, one family at a time. Let us all be change agents. We can all be change agents. I will see you next week.